The East Baton Rouge Parish Library believes that a thriving business community is good for us all. That's why we help entrepreneurs start businesses with tools like Gale Business Builder. Keep commerce rolling by providing access to computers, printers, and free Wi-Fi at 14 branch locations. Get a library card. Grow your business at ebrpl.com/business.
Started making beer at home and immediately fell in love with it. After like the day of my first batch of brewing, I was already thinking, can I do this for a living?
Oh yeah, obsessed with it. He was totally consumed by it, and then looked at me one day and told me I was put on this earth to brew beer. And I was like, wow, that is such a bold statement. And if you can say that about anything, then you need to follow your dream and do it.
Good morning and welcome to Strictly Business. I'm your host, J.R. Ball. This is a webcast featuring conversations with Louisiana's most inspiring and influential CEOs and entrepreneurs with the goal of providing insights, ideas, and inspiration to help you and your business grow. We want to keep Strictly Business as interactive as possible, so for those joining us live, here's an icebreaker question for you. Submit your vote in the comments, and the results will be posted at the end of the webcast. Strictly Business is brought to you by the East Baton Rouge Parish Library and Home Bank. Without their support, this project would not be possible. Joining us for this edition is Tim Barfield, Principal and President at CSRS, a Baton Rouge-based program management firm. With experience leading a Fortune 500 company, a $14 billion state government agency, and a successful private company, Barfield will share what he's learned about management and leadership, as well as offer advice and lessons learned that you may wish to incorporate into your leadership portfolio. Tim, welcome and thank you for being with us today. To begin, what's the elevator pitch version of how Tim Barfield goes from being a graduate of the LSU Law Center to becoming a senior executive at the Shaw Group, a Fortune 500 company?
You know, that's a tough question, JR. I don't, I always wanted to do well. I think anything I've done, I wanted to be good at it, but I don't know if I ever aspired to necessarily be in that position. But I'd say it's just whatever you do, try to do it well, try to do it the best you can do it, and try to become the best person you can become. I think there's a couple things as starting out practicing law, you kind of start off diving into the details, but I had some great bosses, some great mentors who really impressed upon me the fact that while your head may be in the details, you have to understand how everything comes together, how kind of the big picture, the term you hear now, zoom in and zoom out, but understand how everything comes together, including you may be working on a small part of a transaction or a small part of an issue or deal or something, but how does it all fit together and understand the big picture. So I think that was great advice that really helped me kind of learn the business better and learn everything better. So I don't know if there's any secret sauce to it. It's just show up and work hard every day.
Well, one of the decisions you had to make is leaving Louisiana for a period of time. And as a Baton Rouge native and a graduate of Catholic High and LSU, what was sort of the process of how you and your family made the decision to leave Louisiana?
Well, at the time, it was a tough decision. I think, and I was as the date became, you make a decision. Really, it was a couple of years before when I agreed to go work for a law firm, Houston-based firm, Vincent and Elkins, and I went to their Dallas office, which was a pretty young office. So it I think there was some sex appeal to it. It was one of the top corporate law firms in the country in terms of the deals they did, the financing deals and all the M&A deals and things like that. So the big attraction was just to go see, a practice at that level and the types of deals and things of that nature. But it was hard to leave Louisiana. And I have to admit, I was homesick for a while, but my wife, Nan, and I made a decision, let's get over there and let's not make any decision to move back until we kind of get over the homesickness and figure out, can I be successful or not be successful there? And that was a great mindset. It was great to go see, work in a firm that was again, a national class firm that was, you'd work on projects and deals that were in the Wall Street Journal. And you got to see a community that was growing and had a lot of alignment around education and infrastructure and workforce development issues, a very big, strong focus on economic development. Those were all great experiences for me personally and for our family. And so it's a hard decision, but it was just for a guy growing up in Baton Rouge and felt like the center of the universe, the axis of the earth was somewhere between LSU and downtown Baton Rouge. It was a great experience for me to see the world from sort of a different point of view.
Now, was the plan to always for, you, Nan, and the family to come back to Baton Rouge? Like, was that part of the thinking when you decided to leave in the first place? And then what were the factors that brought you back to Baton Rouge?
Yeah, I think we always felt like we could always come back, so there was always that safety net that was great about Baton Rouge and my family and my friends that we were always going to be welcome to come back. But I think we tried to go with the attitude that we're going to go over there and try to be successful there. And I think that was a good mindset to have. So we didn't have any reservations. Let's go put all ourselves into it and see how it works out.
Now, you have the unique distinction of being in the senior leadership team of a public company. You were the head of a state government agency, and now you're the principal and president of a privately held business. And we'll dive a little bit deeper into each as we go along, but I'm wondering from a big picture, is there anything that's been a management or leadership constant that you found across all three spectrums of business organizations?
Certainly, you got to understand your business. You got to understand your business. I think, people are people in a great way and in a bad way, right? Human nature is human nature. So the one constant is, every day there's going to be opportunities, there are going to be challenges, there are going to be distractions. In certain environments, those distractions are very unique. Public company distractions are very unique to public companies, and government distractions are very unique to government. Private business, we have our distractions. They tend to be a little less public and a little less, you can control your destiny. Maybe you don't have to react to the external forces quite as much, but you still have to react. But all in all, it's there's still the elements of running a business. You got to have vision, you got to have strategy, you got to be able to execute, you got to have the team and the people to do that. There's a lot of commonality there.
Yeah. And now when you look at the environment in today, we have the most amount of generations within the workforce that we've ever had in the history of the world.
Yeah.
And there's so much evolution and change happening, and that was going on, pre-pandemic, but it's just sort of accelerated. So all that is backdrop to, what are the greatest challenges with managing an organization today? And then conversely, what are those sort of makes it all worth it rewards?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you look there's definitely, we talk about millennials and we talk about kind of the different generations and their mindsets, and there's some truth to that. But I really believe that, people are people, human nature is human nature. And I think the most rewarding part about working in organizations is just, can you make the organization better than the sum of the parts? Kind of the team aspect of it, the organizational development part of it. Can you find the synergies, and can you work together? Can you work collaboratively? Can you cover each other's weaknesses? Can you help develop each other? I've got a big passion for developing people, and I think that's a big part of the rewarding part of it, is see people grow and develop and see people rise up to challenges and overcome things. And ultimately, for our company, our mission is to build stronger, smarter communities. And that's a huge motivating factor. Can we go out there and can we really have an impact on our environment? Can we really work well, work smart. I mean, the projects that we do are generally very complex, have a lot of variables. And there's that impact on the community that I think is a big driver. Most people who go into engineering and architecture and planning and grants management, disaster recovery work have a big, they're driven by making the world a better place, right? So it's can we work together as a team? Can we be better than the sum of the parts? And can we have an impact on our community so that it's stronger and smarter and better?
You had mentioned your passion for people development. So I'm wondering what advice or tips might you mention to other C-suite executives or managers as they look to grow their organizations and bring their people along?
Well, I think you always have to get better. You never can relax. I think you never could relax, but I think I'm 59 years old and I ran into a friend this morning who's retired, and I have other friends. I had another friend ask me, how long are you going to work? And, I don't think there's an end game in life. We should be trying to get better. We may get older. Our body may be falling apart, but I think we're always have to be trying to improve ourselves, improve how we are. And, I think that's one of the fun parts about it, but it's also, you have to be honest with yourself and where you're strong, where you're weak, where you need to improve, where you need to put others around you to help make your team better and make yourself better. I think that's really the ultimate part of it. You got to keep growing. You have to. This world is so dynamic, it's so disruptive. You can't relax. You never know it all. So you have to keep learning. You have to keep developing yourself. You have to keep developing others around you. That would be my key advice on that front.
And then now reflecting back to your days at the Shaw Group, if you could talk about what it's like managing a Fortune 500 company where you're answering to investors, a board of directors, clients and vendors, as well as your management team and the staff. I mean, there's just an awful lot of people that are sort of looking for answers and or guidance.
Yeah, well, I look back and there was a lot, through the history. I was there for a little over 12 years, and we went from being a young entrepreneurial, almost, it started up before I was there, but grew very, very fast. I think when I joined the year before, they had 140 million in sales. When I left, it was almost 4.8 billion in sales. So we made a number of transformations. So there was no one set challenge and culture at Shaw. It was a fast ride. It was a roller coaster ride at times. We dealt with a lot of challenges at times. But I think you realize when you look back, you saw certainly the value of vision. Jim Bernhardt had a tremendous amount of vision. And he also understood opportunities. He understood opportunities are limited in space and time. And that intersection between vision and opportunities was really a great place to learn. There were a lot of things, I think, if we sat down and looked at it and we knew what we were going to have to do to overcome it, we probably would have said, never mind, we won't try that. But you learn that, you can do a lot more than you think you can do if you just put your mind to it and you got a good team of people around you, and you push hard. You got to have perseverance. You got to have persistence to get through things. The distractions, as I mentioned earlier, they're public company distractions. It is a temptation not to get into that quarterly mindset. And I'm not sure we were always successful with that, but you're always, every quarter you got a report card that comes out, right? So that's a distraction. There's some good parts about that, but businesses are usually built with decisions that you'll know the impact of them years later sometimes. So that was a big part of the challenge. And obviously we grew up a lot during that time. So you started to learn the value of a board, the value of governance, the value of processes and procedures and controls. And I was there when Sarbanes-Oxley came out, and you saw a lot of companies that were the darlings of Wall Street for a while just implode on themselves, right? So you saw the value of it going from a young entrepreneurial company to a publicly traded company, a Fortune 500 company, you saw actually, well, now we have a lot of value to protect, and we need to put those procedures and controls in place, and we need to have that discipline. So all those things were really great education for me. And, I look back, and there's no doubt my last part of the time there, particularly after Katrina and everything, I was burned out. And I had 4 kids, and the last 2 in particular, I think I barely knew. And I kind of looked around and said, I think I need a break. But it was a great experience, a great learning experience, and I learned a lot there. And I think I've taken a lot of those things I've learned with me everywhere I've been.
If you could be just maybe share an example of things that you learned or picked up at Shaw that you now incorporate in what you're doing at CSRS today.
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing, there was so much going on. There were so many things to do. And I mentioned this earlier, the ability to kind of operate at, 40,000 feet and then have an issue, a problem, a challenge, or an opportunity, be able to zoom in with a tremendous amount of focus and get into detail. I think that's been a hallmark. I saw that in other people around me at Shaw, and I think that's one of the things you develop. There's a lot of things that, the term that I heard years ago is you manage by exception, right? So you kind of manage, you try to keep the things that are going well on their own, you leave alone to a large extent. And I wouldn't say I'm a great multitasker, but I think you have to learn to multitask to a certain extent, and you have to have good people around you. I think that's the other thing. If you have good people around you who you can delegate to, or they delegate to you, and you can divide and conquer. I mean, it all boils down to having a good team and having people around you that you trust, and you trust from a standpoint of their technical skills, their competency, their communications, their ethics and morals and all that stuff. I think that's really what I brought with me from all that.
Now, among the responsibilities when you were working within the Jindal administration was you served as executive director of the Louisiana Workforce Commission, and then later as the secretary for the Louisiana Department of Revenue. What government agencies are not, both are multi-million-dollar organizations.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering, when you look at it from the public sector standpoint, what are the challenges to running such large yet critically important departments of state government?
So one of my observations when I got into government is that, first of all, there's some really good people in government. There's people with a heart for government service. There's people with a lot of expertise and a lot of experience in their areas of focus. But the mindset of many of the leaders in government is usually policy or politics, right? Those are the interests that get many people involved in leading government. And so there's not always the operational mindset. And so I think one of the areas that I'm most proud of, and one of the areas that, again, the team that we put around us was really focused on the operating of the departments and the programs and the different functions. I don't believe government is business, but there's a lot of things that government does that should be done in a business-like way. So I think there were a lot of improvements in both those departments and how business-like we did it. But a lot of that was just like the private sector, identifying the people, the key contributors, and putting the right people in the right places and giving them the authority and the resources to do what they need to do to execute. I noticed in both departments when I got there that there was a little bit of hesitancy to make decisions, particularly big decisions that you didn't know how they were going to go. And I think there was some culture in government that, didn't reward you for taking risk and making big decisions, but creating a culture where you can make those decisions to move things along, I think was very important. And so I think, the perception that the government has its bureaucracy and it's got some problems in how they operate. So does my business, and so does every business I've been involved with, right? None of us are perfect. There's a lot of good people in government. So bring in the organizational, how do you organize it so it can perform better with the resources you have? And then, putting people in the right place. And there's a lot of good people in government, and then getting the resources they need to be successful. That was the big challenge. And I think it's still the challenge when I look at government, and it's still hard to look at things so everything can be run better, right? But where do you spend your time and effort to try to move the needle? That's the biggest focus.
Yeah. Well, and as a follow-up, you had mentioned at the start that a lot of the people that were in the government are either political types or policy types,
Yeah.
and what I'm wondering would be, and again, this is a deal where I know in your case, you went from a 7-figure salary to a really low 6-figure salary. And, I'm not suggesting the notion of maybe having to pay 7-figure salaries, but I do wonder if it might be wise when we look at the size of some of these government departments that we're going to have to look at it, paying something akin to public sector or private sector executive salaries if we want to attract better talent running some of these government agencies.
Yeah, I think I'll clarify. I never had a 7-figure salary. I had 7-figure packages, of salary, targeted bonus, and equity type deals. But I do think that you get what you pay for to a certain extent. It was an honor and privilege for me to go into public service and work in that sector. And I had worked a lot with the government sector as a service provider, that I learned so much. But I do think the differential between the overall compensation in many private sector and even large nonprofits, if you look at nonprofit hospital systems and other things like that, the differential is too big to really attract the depth and breadth of talent you need, particularly from an operational standpoint. So I think a friend of mine sent me some information on Singapore, and Singapore from over 50 years went from literally a grass hut and a very poor economy, and on all fronts is now one of the world leading economies when you look at it on a per capita basis, obviously, and improved across the board in education and healthcare and economic development and workforce development, all these key areas, right? They didn't do that by accident. They had some huge ambitions, but they also were willing to pay their public sector employees a much more competitive compensation package. I think as I understand it, their cabinet heads are 7-figure compensation packages. And I think, Singapore is, I think, 5.5 million people or so. So it's not much bigger than Louisiana. So if you look at I think in 1961, Singapore went from $3,700 per capita income, and I think the United States was 17,000 at the time, to one of the world leaders in today's world. So I think you have to look at a lot of factors of how they did that. But one of those factors, how do we attract some of the best and brightest talent? And they may have some strength in politics and policy, but also operational and leadership. How do we attract them to step out of positions at FMOL or Ochsner or some of our big businesses around, and attract and take 4 or 5 years of their life and go give it to public service? Probably having some differentials fair, but the big differential that we're talking about is probably not going to attract a lot of talent.
Now is a principal and president at CSRS.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how your organization defines success.
So it boils down to that mission. We're building stronger, smarter communities. And the projects we do, the programs we're running, are they moving the needle? And that's really what it boils down to. Obviously, we look at the financial success. We look at the success of where we sit, and are we developing our people, or do we have a culture that's a winning culture that people can practice at the highest level, but also be good people for their families, for their children, for their parents, for their spouses, can they be involved in the community and go through things? So that's one of the challenges that we have. We want to practice at the highest level, but we don't want to be that sweatshop, and at the front end of a project or some challenging times, at the front end of a disaster, it is all encompassing at times, but can we kind of settle back down to a normalcy that people can perform well, but also perform well in all aspects of their life. So that's what I would say. Are we having the impact in the community, and are we having the impact in our employees and our principals' lives that they can really be a full person?
And it's primarily a program management firm. You employ a wide range of job types: civil engineers, architects, landscape architects, planners, grant managers, construction managers, environmental specialists, among others.
Yeah.
And each of those disciplines brings its own mindset and approach to achieving results. Some are more process oriented, others are more creative and free flowing. So against that backdrop, how do you and the CSRS leadership team manage that range of unique traits so that, one, everyone feels valued and heard,
Yeah.
and two, the job gets done in the most cost-effective way?
Well, you're right. We have a lot of different personalities, and there's a big spectrum out there. Some of the challenges are just simple respecting each other and respecting our differences. A lot of our leaders have gone through executive coaching. I think we put about 25 people of our firm through executive coaching. One of the tools we use is called strength-based leadership. And part of that is just understanding the strength and differences, and everybody's going to have different strengths and a different mindset. And so how do you respect that? So I think it starts with respecting each other and respecting each other's expertise and the differences that they bring to the table, and appreciating that, but also being willing to, be honest and open about how you feel, and having a culture where you can tell your clients, you can tell each other, you can tell people up the chain what they need to hear, not just what they want to hear. So it's creating that culture that really respects each other and values each other's opinions and insights.
And something I find interesting with growth organizations, and to some degree the company where I work, we're dealing with this a little bit, but it's that balancing act of going after these one-off or specialty businesses that can bring in a lot of dollars and generate big ROI. But then you compare that against that sort of foundational annual operational jobs that are sort of the heart of the organization.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, how do you and the leadership team find this balance, and what advice might you give to other executives in a similar situation?
That you hit on this is the challenge. So much of what we do is civil engineers and architects, and probably to a lesser degree right now, planners have become commoditized. They've become commoditized, and obviously the pricing, but they become commoditized in terms of how our clients look at them, and are they really selecting on quality-based things? And I don't think they should be commoditized as much as they are. But you're always trying to, you can't just walk away from those more mature parts of your business, but you're always trying to add new services. And it's really about creating value. What do your clients need? Where's the value? And I think that's one of the reasons we went so hard in planning 6-7 years ago. We felt like, that how your community puts their projects together and fits it into a larger community, and everything else is really important. And then what used to be shovel ready was engineering or architectural design. Well, now it's more the cost benefit analysis, and is this really going to pay off? And so there's the environment of decision makers who award projects has changed, but that's a constant battle, and we're always trying to refine kind of what additional service sectors do we need to have here, and we're always trying to marry that with better customer service and better connectivity. The IT can be a value add, but it's not necessarily always paid for. But it can be a value add. It can be a communication enhancement. It can help people track where they are, and it can help them see things in real time. So you've got to continue to grow and develop with that whole suite of services, and you can't ever relax. You're never there. You just got to keep working hard.
And I know in your case, you're blessed with an incredible wife. And when you think about, executives, whether they're male or female, and what sacrifices have to be made when you're talking about growing an organization or managing an organization. So I'm wondering how, in your case, is having a supportive partnership help your professional growth?
I couldn't have done, from a business standpoint, we couldn't have done what we've done without my wife and what she's done. I mean, she's done we were fortunate that very early, and when we had kids, she was a stay-at-home mom, but she runs a tight ship, and she's done a great job with the family. The year our second daughter was born, I spent more time out of the country than I spent in the country. Shortly after that child was born, I moved her out of the country, and we moved a few times. On a couple of those times were on very short notice. So just I really do have a lot of respect for the households that both spouses work and they both have high pressure jobs. It's just amazing the pressure under. But I mean, the fact that I've been able to really focus on what needs to be done, and a lot of work is based on relationships, right? The ability to travel and get in front of people and get to know people and get to know other organizations, get to know your clients, get to know your employees is very important. And even we can do more remotely, but that's not going away, and then the ability to go out to dinners and the ability to work, late on a project or a problem or opportunity, all those have kind of boiled up. So it's been fantastic. But also know that like your kids have a lot of structure and it's been Nan and I have done, I think we've been a great partnership, but I give her the vast majority of the burden of what we've been through has been on her shoulders. And my kids have sacrificed a lot. They've been able to have a lot of benefits of this lifestyle, but there were a lot of games and a lot of things that, I wasn't there, a lot of phone calls, a lot of birthdays I missed at times, but it's all for a greater purpose. And I think they've been fantastic about looking at it as a family effort, a team effort.
So if speaking to a cohort of aspiring leaders or aspiring C-suite executives, what advice or key points would you share that might assist them on their professional journey?
That's a very wide open question. So, it goes back to what I started with. You have to keep, the world is so dynamic. It's so disruptive. I remember going to executive development program at Northwestern University near Chicago in Evanston, Illinois. And it was a really intensive, like 5 or 6 weeks period, like a mini MBA. But a couple of things that came out of that, one in particular was what technology, the worldwide, the global economy and the technology, the confluence of both of those have really made these cycles that were always up and down. It's compressed them. So, and we see that, all of a sudden, Silicon Valley Bank's in trouble. Well, no, very few of us, I didn't see that coming, very few said it coming. Are we going in a recession or not? Or this and that. And these cycles are so compressed. There's so much disruption. So again, it's just, you always have to be aware. You have to always be learning. There's the next disruptive technology or the next disruptive business model is just right around the corner. And how are you anticipating that? Are you taking that seriously or reacting to that? But there's a lot of pretenders too. So you're going to have a lot of red herrings if you're not careful. Well, that's not necessarily it. So, how do you sort through all this and make heads or tails of it? I think that's very difficult, but I think it starts with having a strong value system for yourself, but a strong value system for your business, and a culture that has some flexibility and has some entrepreneurship, but also has some structure. So marrying all that together, it's not easy, and it's constantly changing and dynamic. And it's just, I think there's no secret sauce other than you got to stay aware. You got to keep working hard. You got to keep developing yourself. You got to keep developing those around you, and you got to lean on others around you. You got to have people that that you listen to and that can add value and that can hold you accountable and can ask the tough questions on all fronts.
Tim, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights and expertise. It's greatly appreciated.
Well, JR, it's always great to spend time with you, and thank you for all you do, and appreciate this time.
And thanks also to our viewers for making the time today to join us, as well as to our sponsors, the East Baton Rouge Parish Library and Home Bank. Please join us June 21st for the next edition of Strictly Business. Until then, enjoy and make your day a great one.